Hello friends and fellows of the internet, it's me Chaz, and before I get into this video, I just want to take a second to address what's going on in the world, and just in general, because frankly, I don't know, I call myself a journalist, and talking about my opinions on video games, talking about video gaming news, talking about all that stuff is fine. Sure, it's journalism, but there's so many more important things happening right now, and genuinely, if you have time to watch this video, I know for a fact you have time to go and sign a petition to go and donate your money. Go and donate even just your time. Let a video that will sponsor the Black Lives Matter movement because of the ad revenue. Go and watch those. Go and sign those if you're watching this video. And if you don't, and if you disagree with what's happening right now, and if you say all lives matter, if you say blue lives matter especially, if you are against what is happening right now, and I see you in Discord saying that, and I see you in my Twitch chat saying that, or in my YouTube chat, or in my YouTube comments, or any of those places, you will probably be muted. Unless, for some unspoken reason, say you're saying all lives matter only when Black Lives Matter. That is one of the only times I will accept you saying that. One of the things that I run and moderate. Because ultimately what is happening right now is not okay. It is not just. And I encourage you to go and donate. I've done a stream already on my Twitch channel. I'm going to hopefully do more where I'm matching donations. And I encourage you, even if I'm not doing it, even if no one's encouraging you to do it, which is fucked up if you don't have any creator in your life telling you to do so. Just go and do it. Just fucking do it. You owe it to yourself, you owe it to your friends, to everyone you know. Not just because I'm telling you to, but because there's so many extenuating circumstances of all this. White supremacy, racism, police brutality, and how those three are intrinsically combined because of their nature, because of how they started in the US. And if you don't agree, fine, get out of here, leave. I don't want you watching my content, and quite frankly, I don't care how this affects my bottom line. But ultimately, my voice doesn't matter in all this. My voice, I've spoken about this on Twitter. I try and do it the best I can. But I'm here to weaponize my privilege and to get other people's content, other black people's content, other people of color's content noticed. So down below in the description for this video, I'm going to have links to instead of any links to any of my things, I'm going to have links to petitions you can sign, links to black creators that you can follow, and links to black people that you can support in the arts, in their shops, in any kind of business, because ultimately, I know this is too late. I know that me speaking out on this might be, I don't know, it might be ill-timed. It is ill-timed. And I know I'm late on this. It's partially from some ideology that says that I have to be educated on this to understand. I have to be black to understand. And I will personally never fully understand what these people are going through, what you are going through, what black people in America and across the world are going through. But that doesn't mean I shouldn't speak up against an injustice. And I don't care if you think it's performative. I don't care if... I really don't care. Just support these people. Support your fellow human beings. Support your black brothers, sisters, and non-binary siblings. Because there's no reason you shouldn't. Unless you're a shitty human being. Full stop. I don't care what your excuse is. Just go and do it. And if you have an excuse, then get out. It's not your time, and it's not my time either. So, before you watch this video, go and sign some petitions. Go and donate some of your money. And go and follow some of the black creators that I've listed down below in the description. Because seriously, they deserve it far more than I do, especially right now, but at all times. I'm okay with getting political on this channel, but this isn't just about politics. It's about human rights. It's about lives. It's about human beings. And ultimately, I will get political if I have to too, but that's not political. And also register to vote if you're old enough, please. You know who to vote for if you want the situation to get better. And it's not Donald Trump, even if they're almost the same thing. Let's get into the games that I beat in May of 2020. Now again, I just want to remind you all, not necessarily games that I started and finished in May, but just generally games that I ended up beating or finishing or rolling credits on, because Actually, this first game is a bit of a mixed bag in terms of whether or not I can say that I actually beat it, because it's Animal Crossing. And I'm sure if you're following me on this platform or any other platform, you know what Animal Crossing is. It's charming, it's cute, it's funny, and it's wholesome. It's just, in general, a really great time. It's super relaxing, it's super chill, and I would argue it's the game of the quarantine. And I know that's such a dumb thing to say, and that's such a weird way of categorizing something that's a result of human suffering and human lives being in danger. But so many people have used it to help connect to each other. So many people have used it to bring themselves and their friends closer together. And so I think ultimately, you know, that makes it amazing. And outside of that, I've barely played it in multiplayer. I've played multiplayer with my girlfriend and a couple other people here and there, but ultimately I just really enjoyed it. It's such a good, relaxing time. You can listen to a podcast while you're doing it. You can watch a YouTube video while doing it. You can watch a TV show that you've already seen while doing it, you know? It's such a comforting and wholesome experience that I highly, highly recommend, especially if you haven't played it, because I was super skeptical going in. I didn't get it until my girlfriend ended up getting it. And even that was kind of a stretch. I'm not a huge fan of that style of game, and I still loved Animal Crossing. I'm just going to say it right away. It's my game of the month. But seriously, I highly recommend Animal Crossing, and I really, really hope that if you do get it because of my recommendation, that you do enjoy it. The next video that I beat this month is BioShock. Yes, the remastered version, not the original, just because, you know, that's what I had. That's what I had access to. I actually bought this collection way back during a PSN summer sale or something like that, like in August of last year. I've had a similar experience to it with Metroid Prime. That's not nearly the end of my comparisons between BioShock and Metroid Prime, because I think there's a lot going on there that's very comparable. BioShock is really cool. It's a super atmospheric first-person shooter, and I think that's another place where the Metroid Prime kind of stuff comes in. There's a lot of exploration. There's a lot of go here, do this, and I don't think it's aged quite as gracefully as Metroid Prime in a lot of ways. I think in a lot of ways it has. In fact, I think in a lot of ways it does outclass Metroid Prime, which, again, one of my favorite games of all time. I love Metroid. I love Metroid Prime. But BioShock has an incredibly awesome story. The things that it says about free will, the things that it makes you wonder to yourself, the twists in the story are super interesting. I highly recommend that you avoid spoilers. Do not Google the ending. Do not Google any cutscenes. Do not listen to what anyone has to say about this game until you've played it, aside from the fact that it is really good and it's super accessible. It just came out on Switch, it's on PS4, it's on Xbox One, it's on PC. You can find it just about anywhere, shy of like mobile, of course, but seriously, I recommend you go check this out. It's one of those games that's so embedded in the cultural zeitgeist, not just right now, like Animal Crossing might be, but it is highly influential. This game is from 13 years ago, and people are still talking about it today, and I think that just says everything that I need to say about it. It's awesome. Go check it out, especially if you like Metroid Prime. Couldn't recommend it enough. The next game that I beat this month is called Wattam. So for those of you who are unaware, which I'm assuming is most of you, Wattam is created by the creator of one of my favorite video games of all time. I actually talked about this franchise earlier in this series of videos for March. Keita Takahashi. He's the creator of the Katamari franchise. I absolutely love that game. I absolutely love all the games in the series that I played. And, you know, there are definitely some that are better than others, but they're all really whimsical, they're fun, they're hilarious. They don't feel the need to be funny, but they are. They're inherently funny in the goofiness of the dialogue, in the goofiness of the designs, and the sound design, and the soundtrack, and the characters. Everything is just funny, and I think that's one of the things that carries over to Wattam. It's just ultimately a wholesome, fun, enjoyable experience. It's super weird. I don't know how to describe it. It's one of those games where I would say it's a little on the pricey side. I think it's sitting at about $20 right now. I'd say it's about 3 to 5 hours long, depending on how efficient you are. But it's funny, it's cute, it's wholesome, the music's amazing, as per usual with Keita Takahashi games. Of course, he's not the composer, but that soundtrack is still amazing. I find myself going back on YouTube, Spotify, listening to it, because for once, a Keita Takahashi soundtrack is actually on Spotify. But anyways, the game is all about you making friends, making connections, and honestly, I know it's weird that I think that this is a good game for quarantine, but it reminded me at least of why it's important to maintain connections, why it's important to make friends, and the benefits that come with it. And obviously we have so much media, anime, games, TV, movies, everything recommending us to make connections, but Wattam does it in such a special way that you feel like you're connecting with all of these characters, even though it's just a fucking fork or a flower or a mouth. It's just really magical. I found myself even tearing up at the end. It's just so wholesome, happy, and surprisingly emotional. So I really, really recommend you check it out, especially if you're looking for something a little different, something that might be really refreshing for your experience as like just playing games, especially if you're feeling burnt out on playing games like I have been recently. Even though I beat like 7 games, it's because I'm playing games so much that I'm feeling a little bit more burnt out on games. So please, if you're looking for something to play but you don't know what you want to play, just check it out. It's $20, and you know what? If you don't want to spend those $20 there, again, go donate to Black Lives Matter or a bail fund or somewhere that could really, really use your money. After Watam, well, actually kind of like before and during and really just like throughout April and some of May, I was playing Gears Tactics as well. Now, Gears Tactics, for those of you who don't know, is a game in the Gears of War franchise. This is actually my first Gears game, and it's really good. I think it's a prequel too, so if you've never played a Gears game like me, you'll find it super easy to jump in. It's not really a super story-intensive game to begin with, but it has really good game design. From level to level, there are super satisfying things that you can do in your combat phase, in the enemy's combat phase. There's so much you can do in Gears Tactics, and that's one of my favorite things, is that it keeps opening up options to you. If you like XCOM or Mario & Rabbids, I don't think it's as good as Mario & Rabbids, and from my understanding, it's probably not as good as XCOM either. But if you are looking for a really good strategy game to play on PC, you should definitely check it out, because it's about 30-ish hours long, so there's a lot of content in there, and there's a lot of different play styles too. It's very encouraging of kind of going at things from multiple different angles. So, you know, I think it's just a really good strategy game. Even if it is super by the numbers, it's a by the numbers in the best way possible. The next game that I rolled credits on after, well, again, this is another one. A lot of these games I've been playing kind of in and out, in between each other, interweaving them with my time with other games and other movies, books, whatever. And this is actually one that I've streamed a decent amount. It's Streets of Rage 4. And Streets of Rage 4 is probably one of the most visually impressive games I've played this year. I don't know if it's on the same level as Final Fantasy VII Remake, but it's impressive nonetheless. Definitely for different reasons, though. It sports an incredibly beautiful, hand-drawn art style, very reminiscent of cartoonish anime, kind of Saturday morning cartoon kind of vibes, and I love that about it. It wears its homage to its own franchise on the sleeve, too. The Streets of Rage franchise is kind of known, one of the things it's known for is its soundtrack, and it's kind of like dance style, very pulsating beat, certain BPM music, and it's awesome. The entire soundtrack is amazing, and that was definitely one of my favorite parts about this game. You know, the entire presentation aspect of it was absolutely fantastic. I think presentation-wise, this is probably one of, if not the best game I've played this month, and probably within my top 3 for presentation, like visuals and music and stuff like that, of the year. And on top of that, you know, you have, you know, it's a pretty, for a beat-em-up game, you know, which tend to be relatively simple, you know, something like your Castle Crashers, other Streets of Rage games, Scott Pilgrim game, for example. Maybe I just haven't played any since I've gotten older and, like, have a better understanding of how game mechanics work, but I find that it has a really in-depth and fun and satisfying combo system, too, and all the characters feel unique and different, but also all fun in their own ways, and that's something that I really respect about the game. The game itself isn't terribly long. It's an arcade game. The length isn't really the kind of thing you're looking for in terms of a long linear story. You're looking for something that you go for a high score with, that you play on multiple difficulties, that you play with your friends, and that's actually something that I didn't really do. Admittedly, I haven't had much of a chance to play it with other people. I only have one Xbox One controller, and I played it online once on a stream, and it was laggy. It didn't really work that well. And but if you are able to play it in multiplayer, in local multiplayer co-op with someone, super awesome. You should absolutely jump on this. The price is a little steep, but if you're looking for something to play, kind of chip away at repeatedly over and over again, I don't know if I'd put it on the same tier as like Castle Crashers, but it's really good. It's definitely up there. And the last 2 games of last month that I beat actually were both golf games, surprisingly. I'm not a huge golf guy for a lot of reasons. There are a lot of problems institutionally that I have with golf. I think it's just like a weird thing that I don't fully understand, and I don't know if I ever will. But Golf Story kind of helped me understand it a little bit better. Golf Story is an RPG. It's one of the first big indie success stories on the Switch, and it follows you, the protagonist. I think you're just literally just called player, and you play golf and you win. I don't really know how else to describe it. The golf mechanics are super good. The whole thing, from my understanding, is in the vein of the Mario Golf and Mario Tennis games on the Game Boy and Game Boy Advanced, so kind of more of an RPG turn-based, not really a very action-y kind of thing, but it still had my heart pounding, really stressed out about hitting par on this hole or making sure that I beat this person to get into the pro leagues or something, which is ultimately the plot of the game. And another thing that I actually really liked about it is it wears a certain level of self-awareness on its sleeve that I really love. And it's not like the kind of self-awareness that you see in something like Deadpool. I have problems with the way that works, but basically, it's really, it wears its influences on its sleeve, and that's something that I love about it. From something like Happy Gilmore to really a lot like Caddyshack too, and then other non-golf related media too, but I think that it's got some charm, some wit, some humor to it. It's not outrageously funny, but there were definitely times where I found myself laughing out loud from reading the dialogue. When you play an RPG and the text is super dramatic and it takes itself seriously the whole time and the dialogue is entirely focused on the plot, it's not really a charming thing. Like, that's not a world that feels real. That's a world that feels like it's built around the plot rather than a plot that's built into this world. And that's something that I liked about Golf Story. And obviously it's not like a Last of Us level plot. It's not a Last of Us level story, but it's still really good. So if you haven't already played it, there's actually a sequel that's coming out soon. So if you do have any interest on this, you should probably hop on it soon, especially because I think that the sequel is supposed to come out this year. So I think that's like within the next 6 months. So definitely go hop on that. I think it's like $15 and it's on sale pretty frequently because it's been out on Switch for I think about 2 or 3 years at this point. So if you're looking for like a fun little RPG, it's short and sweet, but it's really good, and there's a lot of side content and stuff for you to do. I haven't fully beaten the game. Well, I've beaten the main story of the game, but I haven't done all the side quests and stuff. Like, there's still plenty of stuff for me to do. I don't think there's a single game in this video that I've played that I wouldn't really recommend. And then the last game of this month that I beat is another golf game. It's called What the Golf, and its tagline is that it's a golf game for people who hate golf, and I think that's hilarious for so many reasons. I don't know why, but I think the irony of that statement is just I don't know, it's just funny. The way that I first described What the Golf, I think it was on Twitter, I described it like kind of like a Mario game where they introduce a new mechanic to you, you master the mechanic, you move on, that mechanic maybe comes back later. That's one of my favorite things in gaming, is when a game continually innovates upon itself and changes up its formula in a way that keeps you interested and engaged while also staying true to its nature. And I think that's a very, very hard to achieve balance, and I think there are very few games that can be that tonally consistent while also that diverse in terms of gameplay and mechanics. What the Golf is ultimately one of them. I don't know if it's necessarily an amazing golf game, that's for sure, but it's really cool. There's so much thought and so much humor and so many nods to really obscure and weird games that I really appreciate. There's a ton of Katamari references. There's like a Nobi Boy reference. There are a ton of references to things that I love, and that just makes it even better. It pays homage to a lot of different gaming things. I don't want to get too much into it aside from the Katamari level, because there is some really cool and interesting stuff that they put in there that I was just like, oh my god, this is amazing. My one complaint about this game is that it is $20 on Switch, which is the platform that I got it on. I try and support games on Switch, and on top of that, the only other place I could get it before was Apple Arcade, and I do not have an iPhone. Apple Arcade is $10 a month, and the game itself took me about 8-ish hours to beat, give or take, because I 100%ed it basically. So it took me about 8-ish hours to 100% that game. So it's easily the best mobile game I've ever played. It's also the best mobile port to Switch I've ever played. So if you're into that kind of idea and you have an iPhone, definitely go get Apple Arcade and pick that up. There are a few other games I've talked about on this series, and other games that I've heard are really good on there, like Round Guard is on Apple Arcade as well. If you get it on Switch, the big benefit of getting it on Switch, aside from, getting it played on a controller, getting it played on a Switch, is there is a party mode. And from my understanding, that is exclusive to the Switch. I might be wrong on that, but I think the exclusive party mode kind of justifies the steeper price. I have a Let's Play of that mode going up at some point soon. It'll definitely be after I upload this video. Stay tuned for that, because I don't know, I think it's a really fun, inventive, and creative game that I think you should all go and check out. Again, especially if you have the money to throw at it, but also, I got it on sale. I don't know if I could recommend it at $20. It's an amazing game. And that about wraps it up for this month of my video game diary for May 2020. I don't think there was any game this month that I played that I would not recommend. There was no game this month that I played that I didn't like. You know, I think for this month, I think I'm going to start a new system where I do tier lists, because I do think that ranking these games, especially comparing some of these games, like a golf game to an atmospheric first-person shooter to a strategy game to Animal Crossing, is really hard to do and doesn't really make a lot of sense. So I'm just going to do a tier list of every game, or I'm going to at least try to do a tier list of every game. But ultimately, in the top tier for May 2020, I would put Animal Crossing and BioShock. I think those two, for each individual reasons, are must-plays. Whether you're new to gaming or if you're just looking for something to do, if you're looking for something to catch up on that's been highly influential, I think both of those are really, really important games for their own reasons. And of course, they're also just really good. And then in the next tier, these games are both very incredibly good for me. Like, I love these games, and they're also super innovative in their own ways, but I don't think they're on the same level as Animal Crossing and BioShock. And these two games are Wattam and What the Golf. I don't necessarily know if I like these games in general more than some of the other games, and also, you know, they're both relatively short games. You gotta kind of balance it all out. Then in the third tier, which again is still really good, I would put Golf Story, Streets of Rage 4, and Gears Tactics. Each for their own reasons. I think Golf Story kind of takes the influences from the Game Boy Mario Golf games, kind of and other like golf-related media, and kind of wears them on its sleeve. Super cool, but I don't know if it's necessarily anything that's super inventive or novel. I think it's just kind of bringing back something that we haven't had for a while, which again, really refreshing from a gameplay standpoint. Streets of Rage 4 and Gears Tactics are the other two games in this tier, and Streets of Rage 4, again, I don't think it does a terribly big, I don't think it does a huge amount of innovating. I think it's one of those games where it's kind of paying homage to its past. There's a lot of fan service, which personally I haven't played many. I haven't really played any Streets of Rage before this one, so I can't really speak to how powerful or influential or interesting that fan service is. But the music, the visuals, the combat is all really great. But again, I don't think it does anything necessarily terribly innovative or new. I kind of would say the same thing about Gears Tactics. I don't necessarily think it's the prettiest game I've ever played. I don't think it's the best strategy game I've ever played. But it's definitely a really good strategy game. Like I said earlier, is that it's a really good tactics game. It feels like a really good framework for a Gears Tactics series, where they start building on it with their own mechanics, with unique things. Because ultimately, like I said, it's very by the numbers, it's very safe in a lot of ways, and I'm okay with that. I'm championing innovation, is what I'm trying to say. I'm championing things that do a lot more new things, take a lot more risks. And yeah, I definitely think that taking an Xbox exclusive franchise that was a third-person shooter action kind of oriented game and turning it into a strategy game is definitely a risk. I don't necessarily think it's a gameplay innovation like some of the other things that I've ranked above it. And like I've said earlier, I don't think it does anything radically new for the genre of strategy games, especially in this vein like Mario & Rabbids and XCOM. But I still think it's a really good game. There's no game on this list that I would not recommend. And with that, I'm going to end the video here. Please check out all the content creators, donation links, petition links, and everything else down below in the description. I don't know how to get you all to come to action aside from telling you on Discord, telling you on Twitter, telling you on YouTube, telling you on Twitch that this is the way that you should do things. I'm not saying that my way is the only way, I'm not saying my way is the best way, but I'm saying my way is better than silence. I genuinely hope that I can make my channel not just a place that's free of bigotry, but at least have some semblance of a safe space for everyone. Again, I really appreciate that you are all taking the time to consume my content. But there are other, again, like I've said, there are other voices who have and are and will be more important than me at all times. And I genuinely encourage you all to stay informed. You know, I study journalism not just because I like to write about video games. I study journalism because I want to stay informed and because I care about what's happening in the world. And I really hope that you all do too, because it's the world you live in. It's the world that a lot of you are going to be inheriting. I know a lot of you are a bit younger than me, but this world needs to change, and it's up to us. We are the future. You are the future, a lot of you. And the only way to change things is to act. Thank you all very much for watching. Please make sure to go check out all the links down below in the description. Peace out.